Where are you, boy? The large man shouts as he enters the house. The feeling of the small boy's heart dropping is practically audible as he tries to find a place to hide. Rushing around the box he calls his room, he stumbles, looking for any place that he can call salvation. Finally, he decides under his bed is his best bet. Struggling, he forces his frail body under the cramped, dust-covered mattress. He knows that it's pointless. He knows that he will be found, but in his mind, there is hope that he may not be found. Holding his breath, trying his hardest not to breathe in the dust bunnies and corpses of all the bugs that lay under his bed, he lets out a soft prayer, begging, pleading for anyone or anything that is out there to come and save him. But it is of no avail. The large man enters his room via kicking his already battered door in, turning it into nothing more than splinters and toothpicks. The door flies off its already rusted hinges with a clatter, making the small child jump. Scared and shaking, as the man's heavy footsteps march around his room, the boy lets out an almost inaudible whimper. Quickly he covers his mouth with his shaking hands, but it's too late. With one quick movement that shouldn't even be possible from a man his size, the boy's father yanks the mattress with one hand and flings it to the other side of the room. With his other free hand, the man picks up the small boy by his shirt and holds him up to his face and says, "Why you hiding, boy?" The small child gags as he tries to answer, the strong smell of whiskey and cigarettes palpable on his father's breath. Shaking with fear and already knowing the routine, the boy raises his hands over his face and tucks his head down, closing his eyes. Seeing this, the large man says in a snarl, "I already got you, boy. Ain't no use hiding now." Then he raised one meaty fist into the air and brought it down on the child's head, finally letting him slip away from this world of horror into a little bit of peace that is unconsciousness. Later on through the week, the boy found himself at school. He didn't remember going. He didn't even remember how he got there. But that was normal for him. Ever since his dad started hitting the sauce and started hitting him even harder, he usually just put himself on autopilot and tried to make it through the week as best as he could. The memory loss wasn't new either. It started when his father had hit him particularly hard when he had lost his job. Before he had even realized that his dad was inside, and before he even had a chance to run or hide, his father was on him in an alcohol-fueled rage. He couldn't remember what happened next, and he's glad that he couldn't. But the only thing that he could remember was waking up in a hospital and his father telling the doctor that he fell off of his bike, even though the boy never even owned a bike. Now at school, and finally making it through his classes, he was now at lunch. Sitting alone at his table, like he usually did, he hungrily tore apart the free lunch the nice lunch lady gave him. Of all the people that worked at his school, she was the only one that treated him as if he was normal. She had asked him once before if his father had hit him, but he had told her no. His father threatened that if he were to tell a soul, the next time he passed out from a hit, he wouldn't wake up. Still sitting alone, trying his hardest not to choke as he scarfs down his lunch, the boy overhears a conversation from the table next to him. A group of girls all huddled together, eating their lunches, whispering and chuckling. Slowing down his chewing so that he can listen in on the conversation, the boy hears an intriguing story. Most of it is muffled, but he can still make out some of what they are saying. "Have you tried it?" whispers one girl. "Hell no," says another. "What, are you scared?" asks one in a joking manner. "They say she kills you if you call her, so yeah, it's pretty freaky," says the second girl. The boy sighs to himself, knowing exactly what the girls are talking about. He had overheard it from some guys that were in the bathroom. One of them said that his cousin's best friend's sister had gone missing when she tried it. They said that her body was found torn apart or something. The boy didn't believe it for a second though. It was hard for him to think of anything scarier than his dad. And the thought of some lady that comes out of your mirror and kills you for just saying her name was really stupid in his mind. Suddenly, the boy was jolted out of his daydream by a piece of lunch meat that came out of nowhere. Apparently he had gotten too engrossed in the girls' conversation and started to stare. Now all of the girls were now laughing at him as the piece of mystery meat slid down his face. Then one of the girls shouted, "What are you staring at, weirdo?" Getting up from the table, his hair sticking to his face thanks to the greasy meat, with tears in his eyes, the boy ran home, praying once again that this day didn't get any worse by his dad coming home drunk. That night, the boy lay in his bed shivering, trying to stay warm as the cold wind whipped through the room unabated thanks to the lack of a door. He was eventually swallowed by the darkness of his tightly shut eyes and slipped into a world of dreams. In his dreams, the boy was truly free, and he had everything that he wanted. He had a huge house with lots of rooms, with toys and puppies and everything that his heart could desire. He had a mother who didn't run away and leave him with a monster. She had a warm, loving smile with no bruises or scars from all hits his father had inflicted. She held his hand as they walked through the house and gave him warm hugs as they played tag. The boy and his dream mother froze as they heard the mansion's large doors get pushed open. Walking to the living room, still holding his mother's hand, the boy saw the large form of his father. A pang of fear and pain rang out of the boy as the large man walked up to him. He couldn't help but flinch as the man raised one hand to him. Suddenly, like a shock to his system, the boy was stunned. It wasn't because of a hard hit to the face. No. It was because the man that was his father was now rubbing his head, scruffing his curly hair while sporting an even larger smile than his mother's. The boy, now looking at the man's face, couldn't help but start to cry. Seeing this, the large man knelt down to one knee and asked, "What's wrong, son?" Without saying a word, the boy wrapped his small arms around his father and squeezed as tight as he could. Then he felt two arms wrapped around him and returned his hug, with a nice warm squeeze. And his father whispered to him, "I love you, son." And that's when the floodgate of tears truly opened. The boy sat there in his dream, holding the father that he wished he had in the real world. He stayed like that for an unknown amount of time, but it was all thrown off when he felt the mask that he had squeezed in between his arms was no longer there. Shocked, he opened his eyes. He was surrounded by nothing more than darkness. All of the happiness that he had fled his body, and he could feel that all too familiar pang of fear slowly creeping its way back into his body. He was uneasy and nervous, unsure of what the scene change meant. Looking around the darkness, trying to find anything that could make sense of what he was experiencing, the boy saw something. It was a figure. It was a person, standing there with their back facing the boy. Walking closer, the boy realized that it was a woman. She was in a long red dress, with stark black hair that reached her back. When the boy got closer, she turned around. She had her head hanging down, making her long black locks into a natural veil that hid her face. Getting even closer, the boy realized that her hair wasn't as dark as he thought it was. It was wet. Watching closely, he could see little red drops fall from the straight strands. He could also smell a faint metallic smell radiating off of her. It wasn't unlike copper. Seeing that he was already too close for comfort, the boy stopped. Standing staring at the woman, still feeling uneasy, he was shocked to hear her voice. "Hello, child. Do you know who I am?" she asked. The boy shook his head in the positive. Realizing that the woman couldn't understand him, seeing that she still had her head hanging down, the boy moved to answer. But before he could, she asked the next question. "So, do you know why I'm here?" The boy started to shake his head in the negative, but as he did, the woman raised her head, and the hair that made a veil in front of her face parted. The boy was treated to a macabre horror. The woman's face was bruised and cuts covered it. She sported a grim smile, with teeth that would be pearly white if they weren't coated with crimson blood. Her eyes were wide open, but it wasn't of her own volition. Her eyelids looked as if they had been torn off, and where her eyes should have been were two rippling orbs of glowing red blood. Frightened, the boy stumbled backwards, tripping over his own feet. Before he could even scuffle away from the woman, she offered a hand to help him up. Reluctantly, with one shaking hand, the boy took the offer, and he was hoisted to his feet. Then the woman spoke. "I'm here to offer you something. I can give you freedom. I can give you peace from this life that has treated you so poorly. I can give you a calm that you've probably never known. And all you have to do is call me by my name." The woman stood there, watching the boy, waiting for a response, while her crimson eyes rippled. But the boy stood there with a stunned look on his face, yet clearly thinking it over. So the woman continued. "Okay, I guess this is a lot. I'll let you think it over for a couple of days, but remember, if you want me to free you from all of this, just find a mirror and call my name." And with that, the woman raised a hand and tapped her index finger to the boy's forehead. The boy woke with a start, his eyes flickering around his room and a cold sweat covering his forehead, and tear stains running down the side of his face. He was back in his bed, in his box of a room, still missing a door. Later on, as he coasted through his day, he found himself constantly thinking about the woman in his dream. her scarred and bruised face reminding him of his body, and the legion of bruises that he had covered with long-sleeve shirts and strategic bandages. He even started to question if his dream was his mind just playing tricks on him, or if he had actually spoken to the woman. Conveniently for him though, he didn't have to question his sanity for very long. While in class, he once again overheard the same group of girls, once again talking about the woman. They were all in the back of the class, all squealing and chuckling, completely ignoring the steely glares the teacher shot at them. Listening in once again, this time making sure not to look directly at them, he heard the voice of the girl that pelted him with the meat. "Okay, since you guys are chickening out, I guess I'll have to do it." "Okay, your funeral. When you don't show up to school tomorrow, we'll know what happened," said another girl. "Yeah, whatever," chuckled the meat thrower. So that was that. The boy decided that his bully was now his impromptu test subject. The next day came, and to the boy's surprise, the girl was nowhere in sight. He decided that maybe, just maybe, that he wasn't crazy, and the woman was real, and she did visit him in his dream. That's when he heard her friends say that she was probably just messing with them, and stayed home. Up until that point, that fact hadn't crossed his mind, but her friends did make a good argument. So as the boy went home, he decided that his best bet to figure out if the woman was real was to just watch the news. Then he remembered that today was the day that his mother left his father, and a pang of anxiety rang out through his body. His father was never stable when he was sober, and that fuse was even shorter when he was drunk. But his father always seemed to overdrink when this day came around. With that in mind, the boy managed to work up his resolve, and decided that he had to figure out if he was crazy or not. Regardless of what happened, there may be a chance that his dad would forget about him in his drunken stupor, as long as he stayed out of his sight. He would also get a warning of his father's arrival due to his loud truck. Later on in the night, as the boy sat on the couch, TV remote in hand, ready to flick it off in an instant, he watched the news impatiently, waiting for anything about the meat-throwing girl. The girl was one of the first things that they talked about. They said that her body was found in a bathroom. She was torn apart, gore strewn all over the walls, in a horrific parody of painting. The boy sat there stunned. The woman was actually real. She actually killed that girl, and she was out there killing people who spoke her name. The boy was stricken with fascination and horror at this revelation. But his awe was cut short and was replaced with trembling fear as he heard keys start to unlock the door. Shocked, he fumbled with the remote, hitting multiple buttons, failing to turn off the TV, and succeeding in only switching the channel. He heard his father's slurred, grumbling voice enter the house saying, "How dare they put that fire hydrant there? It's not my fault I didn't notice it." Then his father stepped into the living room, just as he managed to click the TV off. The boy was frozen, still facing the TV, too afraid to look at his father. The man's heavy footsteps walked around the boy and stopped directly in front of him. "Why are you watching my TV, boy?" asked the man, suddenly missing a slur in his voice. The boy looked up at his father, still holding the remote, hands shaking, breathing rapidly. The man's face looked like a warped mess of anger, hate, and unbridled rage. Suddenly, the boy's left ear was ringing, and he was looking at the wall to his right. Then a sharp burning pain radiated through his face. That's when he realized that he'd been hit. Then the man spoke. "Don't look at me, you pest. You look just like that slut mother of yours. Every single one of your features look exactly like hers. Since you're here, I guess I'll fix that," the man snarled. That night the boy realized two things. One, the woman that visited him in his dream was actually real, and she could give him peace from all this torment. Two, his father had perfected his swings and hits, because as hard as his father pounded away at his face, unconsciousness always eluded him. The next day, the boy didn't even attempt to go to school. He felt like death, and in all honesty, he craved it. He didn't feel as if he could carry on anymore. Every bit of light that hit his eyes burned. He had a headache that felt like bombs going off in his head. He would vomit at the slightest of movements, and the smell would only help to make him more nauseous, creating a vicious cycle that left him heaving and throwing up bile. The night finally came, and the reasons he had to live seemed scarce. He was fed up with everything. Here he was, suffering from a punishment he didn't deserve, just because he looked like someone who had abandoned him years ago, while his abuser slept calmly in the other room. The boy was on his last legs. He just wanted the torture to be over. He didn't care how, he just wanted it done. If calling at the woman left him in bloody chunks on the bathroom floor, so be it. So the boy made his way to the bathroom. He locked the door and stared at his reflection in the mirror. He looked worse than he thought. His head was practically 3 times the size it normally was. He had lumps and cuts covering his face, and each eye was blackened. The sight made him cry. It wasn't fair. He never hurt anyone. He never did anything to deserve this. All he wanted was his father to love him like he saw dads do on TV, but this is all he got instead. But it would soon be over. His pain would soon end, and he'd be free. Not even bothering to wipe his tears, the boy gathered his resolve one last time and spoke the woman's name. Bloody Mary. He stood there for several seconds, looking at his reflection, waiting for something to happen. Then suddenly, the bathroom light flickered, and the mirror started to ripple and shake. There she was, hair dripping with blood, crimson eyes rippling like water. The boy stood there ready, taking a deep breath and closing his eyes. Then he felt a hand rest on his face, and started to wipe away the tears from his eyes. Opening them, he saw that she had her arms stretched through the mirror, and her own eyes had streams of red running underneath them. And as she rubbed the tears away, the lingering sting that he had felt seemed to vanish. "You poor child. I'm so sorry that this happened to you. You don't deserve this," she said. The boy stood there stunned, wondering why she didn't kill him. And as if she had read his mind, she said, "I don't kill the innocent. Everyone that I kill deserves what's coming to them. They disturb things that they don't understand, and they're always shocked when they call." With that, she made her way out of the mirror, patting him on the head, and started to walk out of the bathroom. He followed her as she made her way to his father's door. Then she said, "Wait right here." Then she went inside and closed the door. The boy stood on the other side of the door waiting. Then he heard his father rustling, and then a scream. Then it was cut off with a thud. Pained moans could be heard from his father. Then there was a wet thwack, and then another, and then another. After the 10th or 11th, it sounded as if someone was hitting a smashed watermelon with a sledgehammer. As the door opened, the boy got a brief glimpse of what was inside. Carnage painted the walls, brain matter was everywhere. Seeing this, the boy felt a little sad, but it was quickly washed away when Mary blocked his frame of view. Then she said, "Are you ready to go?" Slightly puzzled, but not caring at all, the boy took her mess-covered hand gladly. Then she led him back into the bathroom. They stood in front of the mirror, and the boy was stunned. Before him was no longer his bathroom. It was a sprawling landscape, straight out of his dreams. But there were other kids, running, playing, and having fun. And as the boy held her hand tighter, and as they walked through the mirror, he no longer felt uneasy, or even the slightest bit of fear. The only thing that he could think was, she's not so bad. Hello once again. Thank you for watching my video. Now, I know I missed last week's upload, but school has taken a lot more time than I expected. I'll still be trying to get a video a week, but they may become a little sporadic. I usually try to aim for Mondays or Wednesday uploads, but like I said, school is taking up a lot of time. Hopefully I can stay consistent, and thank you for sticking around and being patient. Anyway, links are in the description. I really hope that you enjoyed. Please hit that like and subscribe button. It will truly help out a lot. And I want to thank all the people that have subscribed to me. I'm now sitting around 34 subscribers. Well, that's if no one unsubscribed, but I'm still grateful to all the people that have hit that red button. So, once again, I hope that you enjoyed, and come back next time when I bring you another tale from a world much like your own.